The Loaded Radio In Your Face Podcast.
It's another edition of the Loaded Radio In Your Face Podcast. And hey, it's Scott Penfold here with you. This week we're talking to the one and only Todd Kerns, or Todd Dammit Kerns. You may know Todd from his band The Age of Electric, who are now actually back together after 20 years in making new music together. As well, you may know Todd as the bass player for Slash, featuring Myles Kennedy in the Conspirators. An all-around great guy, fellow Canadian as well. Todd, thanks so much for joining us today, man.
Not a problem at all. Literally sitting here, coffee in her hand, staring at nothing.
Some really cool news, though. Just Age of Electric featuring the original lineup of you guys. This is really cool. What really got this thing going?
Well, it's a funny thing because AOE officially called it a day in 2000. Nice. Back in the 1900s.
Yes.
It wasn't even really an official calling of the day. It was just sort of like we all went off to do other things and sort of never reconvened. I would get the odd call once in a while, hey, would the Age of Electric be interested in doing this? Would the Age of Electric be interested in doing that? And it was always sort of like, we just trying to get schedules together was, it's next to impossible with four grown men with four different careers going on.
Sure.
Hey, dude, what about this? Hey, dude, what about that? Or sometimes something's being worked on and it kind of falls apart. And you're kind of like, it's just the nature of, the music business is run by charlatans. It has a negative side, but that's, the deal. It just sort of happened that this Calgary show came up last August, and we actually made it work. To be honest, to the very, the day before it happened, I was waiting for it to somehow fall apart. It's actually happening.
Yeah.
And then, so then we had, like I said, we had a bunch of new material we'd worked on, and oddly enough, it just sort of like Ryan and I would chip away at it, and then Kurt would come in and play drums, and then John would happen to be in Vancouver, and we'd get him to play bass on it. And then next thing you know, you got a bunch of new Age of Electric songs. We spent this year, 2016 and 2015, just kind of like doing shows like out of nowhere. It's just sort of like with the Guns N' Roses reunion and Alter Bridge doing a record.
Right. My
world kind of went on pause, and it just sort of it seemed like a perfect time that Age of Electric should be doing something. So we just happened to have fallen ass backwards into having new material. And then 2017 is the 20th anniversary of Make a Pest a Pet. So
yes.
Just funny how these things all kind of come together. So when we first started doing this, there was a lot of talk, from the suit and ties about like, oh, this is great because the West was such a big, thing for us. We came from the prairies.
Yeah.
We moved to Vancouver, and there was very little talk about Toronto and Ontario and anything east. And I was like, I think you guys are all missing the fact that, Age of Electric was a fairly well-received Much Music band. You know what I mean?
Right.
We had videos and we had a whole thing. And to be honest, I think we felt even more sort of received when we got to Toronto. We felt like, people didn't know us from bars and clubs and knocking it out. We just sort of found a whole new audience by having original material, having videos, having albums, and it was sort of a whole different thing. So for us to finally get to Toronto is sort of a long time coming.
And now you were talking about the new material. For people who are going to be listening, is it sound that old sound that Age of Electric had back in the 90s? Is it sort of a rediscovered sound for you guys because of the time that's passed? How would you explain it?
That's the most fascinating thing, is the idea of, I've been making music with other people for the past 20 years or
yes.
whatever it's been, in one fashion or another, and so have the other guys. And, I think the Age of Electric is a big part of what I sound like, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's just sort of part of your DNA.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating thing when you get four guys together and come up with some new music, and it immediately sounds like that band.
That's cool, man. I love that.
It's a really weird trip, because I was like, people ask all the time, so what's the new material like? And I go, oddly enough, it sounds like the Age of Electric. I really don't know how else to explain it. We really draw upon a lot of weird stuff, and I've sort of, over the years, sort of been able to kind of like realize that it's just like, when you grew up in a place like the prairies where we never had a national hockey team.
Right.
We never had we never, to me, I was like listening to the radio, so that bands like Streetheart or bands like April Wine or bands like all these Canadian acts that we listened to,
sure.
To me, they were there with the Rolling Stones and the other biggest bands on the planet. So to me, it was all sort of part of a huge landscape of music. So, but I think the coolest thing about growing up in remote areas is the idea of, there's really not a scene, so you kind of just like what you like. So you can like things like classic rock, The Doors, and you can like things like metal, and you can like things like new wave and folk, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like, we just kind of like, this is a cool song, you know, and it would be like back to back The Police, Cure, Iron Maiden, you know, like this really weird mixtape of your life is not necessarily like straight up punk rock or straight up, you know, heavy metal. It's sort of a mixture of everything. And I think that the Age of Electric, when we really started to find ourselves, I think now I go back, because of course we had to go back and go, okay, so how do you play these songs? You play songs you hadn't played in like 17, 18 years. You were like, and I was like really kind of taken aback by how unusual, because they're kind of rock, but they're also, there's pop elements, there's other kind of weird things here and there. But I know that that's largely where it comes from for us. It's this sort of like, just growing up in a place without a scene that sort of creates its own scene, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what we sort of sound like, is just a whole bunch of weird stuff all in a big weird stew. It's stirred together, and it just creates its own thing.
Self-produced? You produced it yourself, Todd?
Yeah. Ryan has his own studio, so we would just, I mean, he's the alchemist of just sitting there and kind of like mixing stuff together and sort of really kind of, you know, he's just one of those people who locks himself in the studio all the time. So I would float in and out, because of course I don't even live in Vancouver anymore. Put things together, and, you know, Ryan sort of managed to produce, mix, master the whole thing together. And I think that in and of itself, I think, creates its own sound too, because even though we were sort of produced by other people here and there, we were very much hands-on as far as what the quote-unquote vision was, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it became its own, you know, we really sort of had a very big hand in what the band ended up sounding like.
Is there a street date for the actual new material when it can be accessed by your fans?
Well, we're putting out the Make It Fest at that 20th anniversary in February, and that's coming with 4 unreleased tracks. There's some confusion as far as like what exactly, because we have 4 unreleased tracks that we recorded originally back in 1997, I guess. So that comes with the original Make It Fest record plus 4 songs. So I believe it's 17 songs in its entirety. And it has 4 unreleased songs on the 4th side of the vinyl version. And then on top of that, that's coming in February. On top of that, we're releasing a 4-song EP of brand new material that's, you know, that is being released, you know, that's never been released before, that we just wrote, kind of thing. So that's we've been playing three of the brand new songs live since the inception of this. Age of Electric was always that way. We would put out a brand new record and we'd be playing, like, you know, we'd write a song the next week and play it on stage. And I remember our management being like, "What are you doing? You just released a record and you're playing new music already." It's like, "Hey, this is how we do it. We got a new song. We want to play it in front of people.
Yeah.
We knock it around. That's how songs kind of found their place, and then we'd kind of, you know, then we would record them, kind of thing." Yeah. So even now, it's sort of like, it was a discussion of like, "Hey, do you want to play some, you know, should we play some new songs?" Like, and for the first time in 17 years, you're hearing the old catalog, but also here's something new. And I remember at first I was kind of like, I don't know. I think it's kind of a challenging to ask your audience to, hey, not only sit through 90 minutes of classic material, but here's something brand new. But I felt very much what Age of Electric would do. So I thought, hell yeah, let's do that. So we played 3 songs. We've been playing 3 songs at all the shows we've done, and they've all been well received and people really into it. So I think it's really exciting. I think it's a great way to set up this release in February. With,
of course, the Guns N' Roses reunion, and with Myles working on new stuff with Alter Bridge, the Conspirators, is it still a working entity? Will there be future work from the band?
Honestly, we sort of never, it was never set up as like, good game, everybody, high five, here's your retirement package, see you later. It was like, we all sort of like knew that Alter Bridge, I mean, everybody sort of looks at it because Guns N' Roses is such a gigantic thing,
right,
that it was sort of, that's what, you know, that's how this all happened. But it was sort of like, ever since I joined this, started playing with Slash in 2010, which is 6.5 years ago now, which is mind blowing. Yeah. But it has always been, we do a Slash and the Conspirators album, and then Myles goes off and does his thing, and we sort of alternated. And we've been very lucky the way that that's kind of worked more seamlessly in the past, but we always knew that we were eventually going to hit that wall of like just the way things were going to work out, and we knew that 2016 was going to present itself, and that would sort of dictate everything else, you know. So the Guns N' Roses thing came up, which of course was presented as 4 shows, and I was kind of giggling to myself, like, come on. It seems like that thing's going to be the biggest thing on the planet for a long time.
For sure.
So, and the Alter Bridge record only came out last month. You know, that creates its own, you know, like there's a cycle that has to happen there. So,
yeah.
But for me, it's been really good because I've been so, you know, the Age of Electric thing popped up. I had my own solo stuff going. I'm playing a solo show tonight with the band that I have here. We do a once a month residency here in Vegas. And then, you know, I released a solo album earlier this year at a clothing company with Agent Royale out of Toronto called Dammit Wear. And we, you know, I keep myself super, super busy. It's been a bizarre, you know, what you would call a year off has been like busier than ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel pretty fortunate that way. So I would think that you know, the actual answer to the question is there's no real plan in place, but we talk quite regularly about reconvening once everybody's schedule is clear back up.
That's great news too as well. You know what, Todd? I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, man. This has been awesome.
Thank you, brother. Have a great weekend.
All right, see you next time I'm in Vegas.
You got it. Talk soon.
Take care. As always, don't forget to check out loadedradio.com, and if you want to catch other earlier episodes of the Loaded Radio In Your Face podcast, you can find them in the podcast section at loadedradio.com. Also, the website's got your updated hard rock and metal news daily. Of course, the 24-hour stream there for you too, and plus tons more. So check that out for yourself. It's loadedradio.com. I'm Scott Penfold, and we'll talk to you again next time right here on the Loaded Radio In Your Face podcast.
Loaded Radio.